Hello, welcome back. My name is Ari and let's do my October book haul. Now, y'all should be proud of me because I really controlled myself this month and I really don't have that many books to talk about. But I do have a handful of books and some bookish items to talk about, so let's check them out. Alright, so my first category is books that I specifically purchase, and there's only 3 of them. So the first one was an order that I placed in, when was it, September, I think? August, September, but the book hadn't released yet, so it was a pre-order basically, and it finally came in, and that is White Negroes by Lauren Mitchell Jackson. So this is basically a nonfiction book about cultural appropriation, specifically Black cultural appropriation. Well, I don't know why that was so hard to say, but seems fairly short, and it's supposed to be a decent read, I hope. I did order this from, what is the name of this bookstore? Books and Crannies, which is a Black-owned bookstore in Virginia, Martinsville, Virginia. I will link the store down below. I buy a lot of my nonfiction from them just to continue to help support Black businesses. Next up is also a statement, which deserves some backstory. So I'm sure many of you are aware that this year, along with all the other shit going down, J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series, said some extremely transphobic bullshit on Twitter and basically made herself look like an idiot, and a lot of people are protesting purchasing anything from the Harry Potter universe or trying not to support her in any way possible, which is actually kind of hard because she gets royalties from a lot of shit. Anyway, I know a lot of booktubers kind of gloss over this information and they say like the author we don't speak of, or like we don't talk about her anymore, whatever. I think it's very important to continue talking about what she has done that is inappropriate and continue to speak up for trans lives and mention her name only to say that she is a shitty human being who thinks she is better than somebody else because of their sexual preferences versus her sexual preferences, and spreads misinformation about trans women that is complete and total bullshit. So I will continue to speak about her in a negative context while I do what I can to not support her. Which leads me to the book I bought, which is sure as shit not by J.K. Rowling, but what it is Trans Wizard Harriet Porber and the Bad Boy Parasophilus. Which, it's a book mocking Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling about a trans wizard. This is by Chuck Tingle, and apparently this is actually a really good book. From reviews that I've seen and what I've heard about this book, it is quite obvious that Chuck Tingle has never read any Harry Potter books at all, and the only thing that's even vaguely related to Harry Potter is like the title of the book. I don't know when I'm gonna get around to reading this, but I kinda just had to support him because this is fucking hilarious and everything that I needed in my life. The next book that I bought is not making any sort of statement. It is just a coloring book, a relaxation coloring books for adults, and my aren't you a bitch is what it says on the cover. But it's basically coloring book with inappropriate quotes like "eat dick, dick face," or what's another one? How about shut the fuck up? But yeah, it's just a coloring book with inappropriate quotes, which is kind of something I need in 2020, so why not buy it? The other thing that I bought for myself is not a book just yet. It is a bookish item, and recently Brandon Sanderson did a, what is that called? A Kickstarter for a leather-bound edition of Way of Kings, which is like $500. And I backed the Kickstarter, but not to get the leather-bound edition of Way of Kings. Like, I don't need a leather-bound edition of Way of Kings. But there was like a bunch of add-on stuff that came with the Kickstarter, including 2 novellas. And he had not written the novellas at the time that the Kickstarter was going through. They were like, if it made a certain goal, then he'd do the novellas. And I basically kickstarted just for the novellas, but it also came with like some other, what is the name of that universe? Not Cosmere, but Stormlight Archive. It came with other Stormlight Archive paraphernalia, and they're instead of like waiting for everything to be done, which would happen in like January or February, they mail out the stuff like as it's ready to go. And so I got the first thing, which isn't really something I want, but it is a poster for Bridge 4. So, if you don't know who Bridge 4 is, or you've never read Stormlight Archive, then this is going to be very, very confusing to you. But, there is a group of guys who are known as Bridge 4 that are very important to the plot of the Stormlight Archive. And then this guy right here is Kaladin. He's one of the main characters. Like I said, I don't really want the poster. But I have it because it came with that Kickstarter. Kaladin is basically almost everybody's favorite character who reads the Stormlight Archive, but he's, like, I like him, but he's not my favorite character, so him and Bridge 4 isn't somebody that I would want a poster of. But it's kind of a cool thing to have. I might give it to one of my friends who is a bigger Kaladin fan than I am. From here, I'm gonna go ahead and do my SIPSBY unboxing for the month. But I should go get last month's first before we look at this one. Alright, the October teas. So the first tea I got was a Super Irish Breakfast. It is very generic Irish breakfast tea. It tastes like every other Irish breakfast tea I've ever tried, which I like Irish breakfast tea. It's just that particular brand didn't necessarily do anything special for me. Next was the Energy Tea by Your Tea. The Irish breakfast tea was by Stash Tea, sorry. Energy Tea by Your Tea it tasted weird. It tasted like dirt. It wasn't bad, but it had like a distinctly dirt aftertaste. Next up was a Darjeeling Earl Grey by Tea Pigs. I really enjoyed that. I like Darjeeling tea and I like Earl Grey tea, and combining them, which is basically a Darjeeling tea with bergamot, is what a Darjeeling Earl Grey is. I thought it was really, really good, and I very much enjoyed that. And then the last one was a Pina Colada Karma by Tea Kitten. That shit was so nasty. I threw that away. It was so gross. I don't know what it tasted like, but man, I couldn't handle that. That was just really, really not for me. So let's see what we got this month in our November box. So the first thing we got in here is the Miracle Tree Moringa Organic Superfood Tea Mango. And I don't know why this is so special. Let's see. It's caffeine free, and then apparently moringa is one of the world's most nutritiously dense superfoods. It's rich in vitamins, minerals, and amino acids, and it can be used daily to restore dietary imbalances. I don't know how much of that you're actually going to get out of a tea that you've seeped into a cup of water, but I like mango flavor, so maybe this is really good. I'll let you know the taste next month. Next up is an Earl Grey Republic of Teas. This is a very standard Earl Grey. It's a round tea bag, which I guess is important, whatever. I like Earl Grey tea, so Earl Grey is one of my favorite types of teas. I'm not mad about this, but it's not anything special so far. So we'll see if it tastes different than any other Earl Grey I've ever had in my life. Next up, we're gonna do some Lovesome tea, which is Green Rainbow. Which is whole leaf green tea and passion fruit oil. So that's a thing. Let's see if there's anything special about it. This is a low caffeine tea, and it was grown in Thailand. And that's about it. It's very, like, no pesticides, grown in the wild, blah, blah, blah. I like the name of it, and I will let you know what it tastes like next month. I like passion fruit, I like green tea. It's either going to taste a whole lot like dirt, or it's going to be really good. But I guess we'll see. And then the last one in here is from a white tea company, which is the Baltimore Breakfast. It says a hearty breakfast tea that is great alone. It stands up great with cream and sugar. I drink all of my teas black. So if a tea says that it requires like cream, sugar, or like fruit juices or whatever to taste good, I'm never gonna do that. I just drink them all black. This is a high caffeine tea. And it's just a bold blend of Indian black teas that will wake you up in the morning, which I don't drink tea in the morning, but I'm sure that the caffeine is fantastic in this. And that is everything in the November Sips By box. Let me know what you think about those, if any of them sounds interesting, and let's go ahead and move on to the next section. So next up, I am going to do a review of the books that I got in book boxes this month. The 3 of these you have seen in other videos if you watch my unboxing videos, and 2 of them I don't do unboxing videos for those books, so those will be new. This first book is from Brilliant Books Monthly, which is a subscription box where a independently owned bookstore in Michigan basically sends you a book every month depending on your subscription. My subscription is a paperback adult book. So you could do children's, young adult, middle grade, hardback, paperback. There's a whole range of different subscriptions that you can do. Or they also personalize it to you. So mine is fantasy, sci-fi heavy. I want books that aren't really popular, no one's really ever heard of, because a lot of like the big popularity releases I already own and I've already read by the time it comes out in paperback. So this month I got a book called Yellow Jessamine by Caitlin Starling. This is a novella. It's fairly short, and it is a fantasy, and it's a dark fantasy, which is something that I like a whole lot. So the synopsis on the back is very short. I'm just going to go ahead and read it. Shipping magnate Evelyn Perdanu controls the dying city of Delphium with trade deals and secrets, but when mysterious sickness sparks death and obsession, all leading back to her, Evelyn's brittle existence is strained to breaking. She retreats to her estate amidst paranoia and poisonous secrets, intent on rooting out this plague before it destroys everything she's built. So it sounds like a very dark fantasy, and it sounds interesting. I've never heard of this author, I've never heard of this book. If you've read this or heard of this, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments. The other book that you haven't seen so far is my Book of the Month Club. Now, normally I unbox this on stream and will like open the Book of the Month box, but I'm in the middle of reading this right now, so I'd already opened it. And that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Like, you can see my bookmark right here. I'm about halfway, and it's pretty good so far. This is a book about a girl in the 1700s, and she makes a deal with a devil to basically not be property, because women at the time were property. They were owned by their fathers and then sold to their husbands whenever they became of age. And she wants to be her own person. She wants to live life on her terms. She wants to travel and explore and not just exist only to have children. And obviously, as Deals with the Devil goes, that does not turn out how she wanted it to. And basically, her curse is that once somebody leaves the room, they don't remember her existence anymore, and no one can know her name. And she can live her life however she wants to because of this, but as soon as she's ready to, and she doesn't age, but as soon as she's ready to die, then she gives her soul to the devil. So she's immortal and can live however long she wants, do whatever she wants. She just cannot be permanent in anybody's life. And it's kind of an exploration of her life. Interesting so far. It's nominated for Goodreads Choice Awards in Fantasy, which is why I'm reading it right now, because I'm trying to get through those in November. But so far so good. And then all of these you may have already seen. The first one is from My Coffee and the Classic, and this is Short Stories by Edgar Allan Poe. It is a nice creamy faux leather cover. Very gorgeous, sprayed grayish silver edges. Very, very pretty. The next one is from my Unplugged book box, and it is The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. And I believe this is a horror novel about like multiple dimensions and stuff like that. And then the final one is An Illusion of Thieves by Kate Glass, and this is kind of like a fantasy, like a thieving fantasy or misfit fantasy type of story. So there you go. And the last section I am going to talk about today are the influencer arcs that I received from Libro FM. Now, Libro FM is very similar to Amazon's Audible, where it is a subscription thing that costs exactly the same amount every month as Audible, where you can download audiobooks. It's like exactly the same thing as Audible. The difference being is the money from Libro FM goes to supporting small bookstores instead of Amazon. So I prefer getting my audiobooks from Libro FM if I can't find them at my library, because I would rather support small businesses than support Amazon with literally the exact same price, mostly the exact same access. The only thing you can't really get is Amazon Originals, obviously. So I don't know what to tell you. I think it's great. I do have a link if you're interested in switching to Libro FM from Audible. I link it in my comments in every single video. It's a referral link. You get a free book, I get a free book. We're all good. It's great. We're sharing the free books. You can also just like directly buy books, just like on Amazon. Like if you don't want to set up the subscription and you just want to buy specific books, you can do that as well. But as part of the influencer program, every month they give me access to new releases. and I can choose to download them or not. The ones that I got in October, because they sounded interesting to me, are Leave the World Behind by Rumen Alam, and this is, I believe, about a couple who were like vacationing in upstate New York in an Airbnb, and all of a sudden in the middle of the night the couple who owns the Airbnb shows up and says that there's some like really bad shit going down in the city, and they can't like get a hold of anybody, so the people renting are unsure like if these people are being truthful, if there's actually shit going down, like who to trust, all that weird shit. It sounds very creepy, very thrillery, so it really did sound interesting. The next book up is Goodnight Beautiful by Amy Malloy. This is another thriller, I guess, and it's basically Sam is a therapist who works out of the basement for his, you know, practice, and there's a vent in the basement where you can hear all of his meetings with clients upstairs, and so that's basically the thriller plot, is listening in on his sessions, his like sessions with clients and stuff like that. Next up is a nonfiction, which is my preferred audiobook thing, and this is Down Along with That Devil's Bones, and this is about monuments in the United States that are dedicated to bad people, specifically like the legacy of white supremacy, where we have monuments and statues dedicated to Civil War generals or just other known white supremacists that for some reason, especially in the American South, these people are worshipped and have statues and monuments when they enslaved people and they were fighting to keep slavery alive. Like, the Civil War was not a good thing, guys. Sorry to burst your bubble on that one. The next one is a poetry collection called Apple Skin to the Core by Eric Ganworth. This is indigenous poetry, and apple is kind of a slur in Native American communities where you're red on the outside and white on the inside. So basically a Native American who acts like a white person instead of properly respecting their heritage, which sounded very interesting to me. The next book is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily Danforth, and this is a historical fiction, I'm gonna say, set in the early 1900s, where young girls at a boarding school kind of set up a smut club where they read smutty romance novels and have sapphic relationships, which is a big no-no in the early 1900s. And then apparently it's kind of a thriller because the property where this boarding school it is, a bunch of people die and it's known as cursed. And that is not a whole lot of information, but I'm pretty sure that this is a horror story. The last book that I got in my October ARCs was Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is a fantasy novel that is based on indigenous culture. I've read it already. I literally read it last month and I can barely remember what it's about. So it's not something that stuck with me very well. I was very interested in the magic system of it and thought that the culture and the magic system and all of that stuff was pretty cool, but the plot just really wasn't for me. So, sorry. It happens. And that's everything. That's all the books that I got this month. Let me know what you think. Are there any of these books or any of the audiobooks that I really need to prioritize and read as soon as possible because they are so good? Are there any of these books that you're like, holy crap, that was trash, never touch it? Let me know down in the comments below, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.